Megi moin, liebe SEO Presso Podcast-Freunde. Habt ihr schon von Claneo gehört? Claneo zählt zu den renommiertesten SEO-Agenturen im deutschsprachigen Raum und ist auf internationale Suchmaschinenoptimierung und Content-Marketing spezialisiert. Mit einem erfahrenen Team aus über 80 Expertinnen unterstützen Claneo Unternehmen in den Bereichen der strategischen und technischen Suchmaschinenoptimierung, International SEO, Off-Page SEO, Content-Marketing, Content-Erstellung, Marketing-Efficiency und Digital PR. Das Team bringt jahrelange Erfahrung aus verschiedenen Branchen wie FMCG und E-Commerce über Reise, Finanzen und Versicherung bis hin zu Health und Pharma mit. Claneo betreut namhafte Kunden aus verschiedenen Branchen wie zum Beispiel Henkel, Bosch, HelloFresh, Jungheinrich, Birkenstock und Ab in den Urlaub. Das klingt für euch spannend und ihr wollt Claneo persönlich kennenlernen? Dann schreibt einfach eine Mail an info@claneo.com oder besucht claneo.com und macht euch selbst ein Bild. Und solltet ihr im Mai auf der OMR in Hamburg sein, dann nutzt die Gelegenheit und besucht Claneo direkt vor Ort. Ihr findet sie in Halle A4 an Stand A06 und schickt schöne Grüße vom SEO Presso Podcast. Hello and welcome to another English episode of the SEO Presso podcast. My name is Björn Darko. I'm your host, and today I'm speaking to Vanda Pókecz. And Vanda is Senior SEO Product Manager at Ladenzeile. She was before SEO Product Manager, also was an interim role as a product owner there, started as an SEO Manager, have been working as a brand ambassador in Dublin as a telemarketer, and also studied in Dublin. She recently just did her first talks on two big conferences in Europe, the SMX in Munich and also Brighton SEO. Today we are talking about her experience there, of course, but also talking about how SEOs can play a key role within product management, because that's what she's doing every day. Hello, Vanda. Nice to have you on the podcast.
Hi, thanks for having me back. Great to be back.
Yes, we recorded one episode already, I think 2 years ago, where I asked you how it is to get into SEO. I think it was a great episode for everybody who wants to give a listen. Please do it. Do you think everything has changed for your perception on SEO since we did the last podcast?
Yeah, I mean, that was at the very beginning of our journey into this product management area, right? So since then, I have worked on multiple, new features and so on. And it's like a totally new world, I'd say, in the past 1.5 years or something than what we did before in the SEO team. So, but it's exciting.
What would you say that you, as a product manager SEO, have as an advantage now with all the experience that you have, with the projects that you worked on, also with the presentation that you give and the discussions that you might have with other SEOs? What advantage do you have as an SEO that plays a key role within product management compared to somebody that still works within online marketing? What would you say?
I think we are just so better placed because, right, that's the issue for most SEOs, that we are bringing all these great ideas, like even if you are not working in the product management, but it's so hard to get the resources from the engineering teams. And I feel since we moved to the product and engineering area and working closer together, we also understand each other better. We are able to communicate with each other better. And hence, of course, we have an easier time, even though sometimes it's still hard, but we have an easier time to get the resources simply because we are closer together and, have this kind of pathway to each other.
Mm-hmm. And product management is very important that you own features. If you look at the components and features that you as a product manager SEO take care of, are there anything that SEO should own and that you own where you can drive success to?
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously we have, it's not necessarily per se I am owning it, but we have a number of, internal linking features, for example, which obviously it should be something for SEO, and it has been. However, since we moved into this product area, I feel like we are taking a very different approach to them, right? We are making sure that they are also very suitable for the user, not only for the bot as the user, but also visually, more pleasant or more accessible and so on. So of course that area, but we also have a few other projects, right, in the team, like one of them, which I am driving, which would never have been an SEO topic before. Like, for example, our product cards, just for everybody who's listening, that's kind of how we are showing our partner shops product on our platform. This never would have been, I feel, beforehand an SEO topic, even though it influences, very important user signals, or it plays a part, whether bounce rate on, of course, our ultimate goal is to make sure we are driving traffic to our platform that is also converting. And I don't think it ever would have been an SEO topic in the past, but now it's being driven by SEO product managers, of course, in a major cross-departmental effort, which is also great.
What I really like at your presentation is one approach that you're going into, which is called product discovery. And this might be completely new to the SEO industry in general, because it's a very product related approach. But what I really liked here is that you also tied specific projects to this whole process. Can you elaborate a bit on how product discovery works within SEO, and what kind of, what is the approach? What kind of steps do you need to take in order to come to a result?
Sure. This is definitely something that we've never done before, and this has been totally new for us. The main goal of product discovery, of course, and where you should spend the most of your time at the beginning of a new product work, is actually understanding the problem. So we are usually doing that either by starting with some user interaction. I mean, in the past, we've been doing surveys, or we've been even having a whole guerrilla interview day. But a major new thing we have been doing is actually combining this with a sort of design sprint, which is moving towards the validation side of product discovery. So obviously, in product discovery, just to explain a bit, there's two parts. There's sort of the solution space, starting with the problem space, where you really truly understand and define your problem, or that the problem that your user is facing. And then the solution space, where you actually create, prototypes, you test, and you kind of validate your problem. Or you go back to the drawing table if you weren't able to validate it, right? So at the end, your goal would be to either, have a prototype which you can move into development, or if you weren't able to validate it, you move back a few steps, and maybe you go back and you think about, was the problem correctly defined, etc. So technically, this should really be going on continuously, parallel to sort of development and delivery efforts. However, I think that is something that at Ladenzeile we also need to still improve on a little bit. For now, we are really working in this kind of design sprints, which usually take between a week or 2 weeks. But I think our ultimate goal is to really improve on a continuous effort, where we're continuously defining problems and moving into this, prototyping and testing and understanding.
Yeah, but it's a really great approach, because, I also work since, 12 years within SEO. Not like when I started, that was never a topic at all. And also the exchange with product was not very regularly. We actually just started always to complain because product was still not doing this ticket. There was no explanation why. And sometimes we had to wait for a long, long time. Now you be in a state where you can actually drive and design this by yourself and make sure that, everything that you're building is actually also covered with design resources, design opinions, engineering opinions, that you also put specific stakeholders within this process so that they can give their opinion about it as well. And the most important thing, and we as SEOs, and I used to do this as well, we assume a lot, right? So we think that this needs to be done because it's good for SEO. And in this process, we actually take the first time the user also into account, right? So because you do user interviews, you said it, guerrilla interviews, but also user testing. What has changed from your perspective since you also take the user into account in your everyday work?
Yeah, I mean, you're right. We're basically backing our request by, data, if you like, user data. But what have changed is actually, in general, I mean, my work became so much more interesting, right? Because beforehand, we were really focusing on just fixing everything, just, focusing on only the bot and the crawler and just making sure everything is, tweaked here a little, tweaked here a little, but there was no real, intention behind improving this product for the user. And now, and it makes sense because like Google has always, like the search engines have moved forward so much where they are maybe not so focused on like little tiny tweaks, but the entire algorithms are focused on making sure that the users who are physical, people searching are actually like served with sites which are actually serving their intent, right? And beforehand, I don't think we ever understood truly what was the intent, like what did the user want to do. And now with these kind of testing and talking to users or carrying out surveys, we are actually able to pick up on nuances, which before we may have guessed because we are also users ourselves of, e-commerce or whatever, but we could never like back it up. So of course it makes sense that we also maybe didn't get the resources because it was a guess. And sometimes maybe it was true, but now we are able to actually prove it with answers from users who are looking for something in particular.
Yeah, and do you also think that like the perception of other stakeholders, like be it designers, be it product people, be it also engineers, have changed because you are part of the process itself, and you're not a stakeholder that says, "Hey, we need to develop this because of X, Y, Z," and they say, "Yeah, but we don't. We also have other stuff to do." So now, as being a key part of the process, and sometimes also be responsible for the process and driving the process, do you think that the perception between SEO as a product manager and product people, stakeholder, engineers have changed, and if yes, in what direction?
Definitely. I think at the beginning it was a little bit harder because I think they really needed this team, designers, engineers, etc., really needed to kind of accumulate to this idea of like, why are you driving this? Like, you had never done this before. Like, why are you doing this? However, I think since we've worked together like multiple times or multiple projects by now, they understand that you being there and driving it means that they are actually also being listened to and their input is also being taken into account, where in my opinion, often that can not be the case. Maybe, engineers or designers feel like, oh, I'm just being sent a ticket and I need to create this new feature or design this new element. But now, since we are working as part of a cross-departmental team that includes them, we are actually listening to them. And I think we can feel this in the communication and in the response as well, that they really appreciate this, which also motivates them further. And hence they also kind of accept us in this role of driving this. So I think that's what really changed for me personally, moving from what we've done before to this, new area. But at the beginning, I think it was actually pretty hard for a few weeks or months. Now it's, I think, working very well.
Yeah, change is always hard and it doesn't happen overnight, right? I would be interested, maybe because that's also for the listeners, something, going out, also as an SEO, going out and actually do user research, right? Sometimes it sounds all so complicated and you need to, do a lot of preparation. You have to have interview questions. You have to have like a framework. You have to have like stuff where you can collect it and stuff. And it sounds always so complicated, and B, I guess there are some SEOs that say, okay, that's not my job. That's UX job, or we have like researchers for it who can do it. What tip would you give SEOs if they want to step out and really do user research for those specific components like internal link widgets, or maybe the order of filter bars, or maybe how content should be structured? What kind of tips could you get? Could you give to make things easy, but at the end get insights and valuable insights anyways?
Yeah, I mean, I would just say, do it because I agree with you. I also thought it was complicated. I think everybody thinks at the beginning, because of course it's very nice when you have a UX researcher who can, write you if you have that, use it, bring it into your cross-departmental team, fine. But you don't have to overcomplicate it. We did this amazing, super fun day actually at Ladenzeile, where we just had a simple templates. We just wanted to look at, pain points, what the user, enjoyed while interacting with our product, etc. And we literally had 4 basic areas with a few basic questions. And we just went out literally on one day, had these papers in our hands, grabbed people from the area and just talked to them. And most of them were actually quite happy to be involved, even though we didn't even offer them some fancy price or something. So literally, I would suggest on that part, you can do this easily. Just simplify it. Don't over-engineer it. And I'm saying that who likes to over-engineer things. So don't do that. On the other hand, of course, if you want to carry out, for example, a survey that you're going to push out to 40, 100 people, do sit down a little bit and do talk. Don't do it alone. Do it with at least one more person, and just make sure that your questions are making sense and are actually focused towards the problem you are trying to solve, because it's you only have one chance. Of course, you can repeat it, but you don't want to do that. So spend some time on it, but don't over-engineer it, basically.
And I would also say, like from my experience, it's also, you don't need to talk to 100 people or 1,000 people, right? Sometimes you get also insights if you just ask your auntie or just your sister or your wifey or your husband, right? And can you do a search? Can you do X, Y, Z? And can you tell me what you feel about? The most important thing is that you don't influence them, but just let go and just listen, right? And also, if you ask 5 or 6 people, sometimes you already have a pattern. If they do the same practice, sometimes you have a pattern after 2 or 3 opinions already, and then that's enough. So you can gain actually a lot of insight just by talking to people. And I think that's something which is completely missed in the SEO world, or majority of the SEO world, because again, like we're assuming a lot, and we believe that we think we know what is important for the user, but it's not, right?
No, at the end of the day, I think, I don't want to say anything that is untrue, but in my memory, around 5 interviews after a full design sprint for validation is kind of enough to get over maybe 80% of the type of answer you would get. And after is just an added bonus, but around 5-ish is actually already quite good. So yeah, doesn't have to be hundreds.
Assumption was another great keyword. Actually, within your presentation, and that's again like an approach also from product management. So great that you also picked that up. It's the problem statement, right? And again, like we within SEO assuming a lot, but from your perspective, how can crafting a problem statement at the end of the day can help to build better features and better concepts for SEOs?
So when you start, you would really start by, like researching and discussing with your team and trying to understand where the problem lies. But actually crafting a problem statement is extremely important. And I realized that working on one of my projects where we kind of had our goal, and everything, but we didn't have a clear statement, which led to a lot of stakeholder confusion down the line. And we did have to go back to the drawing board and kind of define this. Now, you can use kind of different frameworks to define your problem, but in any case, it should be quite to the point and, like not too long, etc., and easily understandable by the stakeholders. And I cannot stress enough, which I did in my presentation as well, and how important it is to have that problem statement and spend time on it. A lot of people want to jump right onto the validation stage, testing, prototyping, because that's exciting. That's nice. That's pretty. However, if you are trying to validate something that is solving a wrong user problem, you will not get anywhere. So spend the majority of your time and just understand your problem, and then it should be fine.
That's a great tip. And now, I said it in the beginning, so you now went to 2 big conferences, actually your first time on stage, SMX in Munich, which is quite a big one, if I'm not mistaken, the biggest search conference in Europe. And then Brighton SEO, also super big, I think 5,000 people attending there. Your first time on the stage, and then in Brighton it was a topic about core web vitals, and then in SMX Munich about product management and specific projects that we are building here at Ladenzeile. First of all, how was your feeling before going on stage and preparing all the slides and being aware that you actually will be on a big stage and speaking in front of people?
Things started with a massive surprise because I applied to these huge conferences just, based on it like that I'm not going to get them anyway, like they are so big. And then within like 2 weeks difference or something, I got the offer to speak on both of them, which was a major realization because they were also just 1 month apart, right? And me being an overstressor, I have been working on those DACs for months. So honestly, it was a very mix of excitement and extreme nervousness, and trying to tackle my perfectionism. But like getting closer to the time, it was so nice because I could kind of get in touch already with like fellow speakers, start to build that feeling, that networking, that community, which kind of really helped me because I understood that even seasoned speakers get nervous, and they are still thinking about what they're going to wear on stage, and it's not just a newbie problem. And then kind of getting closer and being on the day. I had everything, like the headache, the stomachache, being super nervous. But like, luckily, once I stepped on stage, it's, the adrenaline kicks in, I guess. And, your brain is just like working like it never worked before. And everything, I was super happy. Everything went fine. So on stage, I was not as nervous as in the weeks coming up to it, for sure.
And then being on stage, I mean, at SMX, you have been on the biggest stage and the big auditorium, right? What kind of feeling was that to jump on stage and actually realize, okay, now it's the time?
It was a bit like, did they make a mistake? They're like, oh my God, my first time speaking, like on the big stage, like fellow speakers were telling me, you managed to do something I never have. I'd never spoken on the blue stage, And it was so cool because on that stage, they also had this kind of, it's little things, but they had this kind of dramatic music while you're walking up and you're like suddenly seeing, the whole audience. And luckily, once you start speaking from the lights, you actually don't see the majority of the audience. So that makes it easy. So it's really like your heart, drops a bit like, oh my God, this is happening. But it's so exciting. Like, I really enjoyed it.
Do you lose your nervousness once you start speaking and talking?
So funny because in Munich, I was more nervous beforehand, but I totally lost it while starting to speak. In Brighton, I was less nervous beforehand, but I was more nervous on stage because it was a smaller stage and I could see everyone. And it was also a pretty packed audience. So I guess it will depend on the setup, but maybe I enjoy the bigger stage, you can see everyone.
For you, what is the both conferences are completely different also from a cultural perspective, right? But like, what is pro and con on SMX and Brighton from your perspective?
So in SMX, I think a big pro is that it's a search marketing conference. So it's not, in Brighton, you also see a bit of different talks, but it's largely SEO focused, right? In SMX, you also can get a taste of the other side of the coin and meet people from that side as well. So that's great. And it's a very advanced audience as well. So it's very, nice to be able to share something and be appreciated that you share something with an audience who is actually quite advanced. And super nice in both conferences, very, very nice audience. On Brighton, however, there's a bit of more of a mix, I feel. There's also more junior people, more advanced people as well. And just the atmosphere, the jokes come across a bit better. So it's a very different vibe, as you said. I think SMX is a little bit more professional. Brighton is a little bit more laid back, but I couldn't tell you which one was my favorite. Honestly, both of them were amazing. Very well organized as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I always used to say that Brighton is the most non-stiff conference where I have been to, because it feels like you're, taking your your course and you go on vacation all together and you just stuck there for like 2 days and have a huge blast and party and great conference speakers as well. So it's really nice, and they take care of you, right? They really take care of you. They offer you trainings, and even when the last time I spoke there, I told them my son will come with me, and they printed a card for my son. So these key holder cards where they've written on Daddy's #1 fan and stuff, and he was so proud to wear it. Like they really care about it. That's super cool. And then SMX, I was there, I think 2016 or so, just once, but I remember it's super big as well. And as you said, it's more professional. But I mean, from a German industry perspective, it's good to be there because everybody is there, right?
Yeah, that's a good part that, you can really get to know a lot of people from the German industry, whereas in Brighton, it's like still, but it's an extreme mix and a lot of people from overseas as well and so on. So both of them have their advantages.
If now we have some females in the audience that are listening and maybe are also thinking about going on stage, but they don't dare, too nervous, or nobody would like it, what tip could you give them to overcome this nervousness and this doubts?
Well, first, I think you really need to decide if you actually want to do it. And if you do want to do it, then actually people ask me like, how are you doing this? Like, how did you get into it? And all I'm saying is you just need to take that first step and just write your pitch, because they are always extremely happy to take new speakers. Like that has been my experience with both of the conferences, that they want to encourage new speakers. And in general, focusing on women, I think in the past, maybe it was not so equal, like the distribution of participants, etc. Now, I mean, there are so many female speakers, there are so many female attendees, and they are super, welcoming and supportive. For example, I have relatively recently, a few months ago, joined this Women in Tech SEO community. And in Brighton, there was an entire, little drink reception just for this community where you could meet a lot of, speakers or other people from the community. And they were all super supportive and super nice. And even like through this community, I found some people who volunteered for me to practice my talk with them beforehand.
Nice.
Which was just, yeah. I was so surprised. I was like, oh my God, we never met. We're not even living in the same country. And you're offering like half an hour of your time to speak to, just listen to me and give your opinion. So there's so much support out there, and it's, really just taking that first step. So if you want to do it, you should just do it, but don't be disappointed, if it takes a few tries, like that happens.
Yeah. And I love what you say, because I think there's very few industries in the world where people are so helpful and so supportive, and, where also knowledge is being shared and nobody gets punished if they, fail or do a mistake or stuff. That makes the SEO industry, for me, at least one of the most interesting industries to work for and in. Thank you, Vanda. It's been a pleasure to talk to you again. Hope to see you on the podcast again in a few months, and wish you further great success as a product manager. And we see us and hear us next week again on the SEO Presso podcast. Ciao.